GoogleAdsStrategy.com.
Hello and welcome to the Google Ads Strategy Show, where I answer your questions about Google Ads. My name is Kyle Sullerud, and today I'll be answering the question, what is a good CTR? If you're not familiar with CTR, that stands for click-through rate. And sometimes this will show up in your account as interaction rate, the interaction being the click. So the interaction rate is then the click-through rate. First, real quick, what does this mean? So click-through rate is the percentage of people who saw your ad who then clicked on it. So if 100 people saw the ad and one person clicked on it, you have a 1% click-through rate. If 100 people saw the ad and 10 people clicked on it, you have a, say it with me, 10% click-through rate. So what's a good one? Well, as you might suspect, I'm going to say it depends, but I do want to give you some guidelines here. So first, I'll be talking about search campaigns for the most part. I will touch on display campaigns in this episode, but mostly when people are asking this, they're asking about search campaign click-through rate. And a good range to keep in mind is 5 to 15%. Now, this, like I said, depends, and it varies on a number of factors. So let me talk about some of those. So if your keyword targeting is extremely focused, if you're using very specific keywords, perhaps you're using specific location names within your keywords, or you're using specific brand names or specific attributes of products within your keywords, well, then you're going to have a pretty high click-through rate, maybe 15, 20, 25% or more. Okay, those are really focused. And the reason the click-through rate is high is because we already know pretty precisely what the person is searching for, what they're trying to find an answer for. So if we can give them an exact answer to that question, they are very likely to click on the ad. If we're targeting keywords that are not as focused, maybe they have some relation to what we're selling, but it's not 100% focused. There aren't a lot of details there. Well, then the chance that we're going to answer the question in someone's head goes down. Okay, you can still have a great campaign with a 5% click-through rate. I have some campaigns with 2 to 3% click-through rates, and they work. But within those campaigns, there are definitely keywords with much higher click-through rates, and then other keywords with much lower click-through rates. And I'm very aware of this, and I make sure that these keywords with the lower click-through rates are profitable. Okay, if we get too broad, then the chance of profitability goes down. If we're targeting very broad keywords, let's say the click-through rate is only 1% or less, that tells me that the ad is being shown to too much irrelevant traffic. It's being shown to too many people. And there's always going to be some of those people who click on the ad even with no intent of ever becoming a customer. Okay, that's why things aren't typically going to work as well with a lower click-through rate. With a higher click-through rate, we're getting enough good customers in for the most part because we're matching what we're selling to what they're looking for. We're getting enough good customers in that even the extra people who might click on the ad with no intention of making a purchase, those people don't completely destroy the campaign. There's enough good traffic coming in where we can afford some of the bad traffic. But with too low of a click-through rate, the tendency is you're going to get mostly bad traffic. So anything less than a 5% click-through rate is going to be pretty suspect. And you want to keep a close eye and make sure that that traffic is actually converting and it's actually profitable for you. Another thing that has a big impact on click-through rate is your ad positioning. Is your ad at the top of the page, or is it lower? Is it usually in the third or fourth position, or is it in the fifth or sixth position at the bottom of the page? This type of stuff is going to have a big impact. So the ad at the very top of the page, all else equal, that is always going to get a higher click-through rate. Okay? People are more likely to click on the first result that comes up. So if you are running the same ad and you're bidding higher so that it's in the top position versus bidding lower for it, so maybe it's in the third or fourth position, that same ad is going to get a higher click-through rate in the top position. That's just how it works. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And I'm not saying you should be in the top position all the time. Sometimes that's too expensive and you'll end up being more profitable in the third or fourth position. But it's something to keep in mind if you're looking at your click-through rate. Now, I said anything less than 5% is suspect. I'd say anything 1% or less is probably really bad. You're too broad. You need to tighten up your targeting some. You need to get a little more specific. But let's transition to the display network. On the display network, you could expect click-through rates of less than 1%, sometimes a lot less than 1%. And this is fine because these people did not come to a website with the intent of clicking on anything. They came to a website for a different reason. They wanted to read about whatever this website that they're on is offering. So for more than 1 out of 100 people like that to actually see an ad and want to click on it doesn't happen a whole lot. Now, if the thing you're selling is a perfect exact match to whatever the topic of this website is, you might see some higher click-through rates. And by high on the display network, I mean like 1%. 1% is high. But usually you're going to see a lot less than 1%, and that's fine. You don't need to worry so much about click-through rate here. It's more about, is the traffic you are getting, is that profitable for you? And one last thing with the display network, it's actually bad to see a higher click-through rate for the most part, because there are people out there who will scam Google. They will scam advertisers by setting up a website, installing the code for Google Ads, and it's a website nobody would actually go to for any reason, except the owner of the website will go there and click on these ads. And perhaps his friends or someone that he pays will also go there and click on these ads in an effort to make money for the website owner. Okay, this is obviously a scam. It's absolutely against Google's policies, but it happens. And you can find these websites by actually looking for placements that have a high click-through rate. And then when you find these, okay, and I don't mean, sometimes you'll see a high click-through rate if there's only been 1 or 2 impressions from a website. Okay, that just by chance happens sometimes. But if there have been 100 or 200 impressions and you're seeing a click-through rate of 3, 4, 5% or more, that's the first sign that you're running into a scam, and you can just exclude that placement. Again, maybe that's not the case if what you're selling is extremely closely matched to the topic of the website. Then maybe you're getting higher click-through rates. But if the website has nothing to do with what you're selling, that's a scam. Go ahead and block those high click-through rate sites. So that's what I have to say about click-through rate. Hopefully that gives you something to go on. This has been the Google Ads Strategy Show. I am Kyle Sullerud, and I will talk to you later.